Today, I'm joined by the founder and owner of OnlineJobs.ph. He's helped over 100,000 people outsource differently. He is the new author of The Outsourcing Lever. And you're just going to love this interview, I think. So get ready for tons of value. Mr. John Jonas, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Glad to have you here, John. So, John, I want to start. You're doing a ton of different things. What has motivated you to write this book, The Outsourcing Lever?
So, I've been doing this since 2005. I've been hiring people in the Philippines since 2005, and I've had so many people ask, and there's so much that goes into it. Like, I've learned so much and done tons of interviews of other people succeeding doing it. And I wanted to put it all together into one piece. Like, I get quite, well, how do I pay these people? Oh, how do I deal with this problem? Oh, what about that thing? Or how do I get better results? Or like, I have all these things that, like, I have an answer for every one of these things, but let's figure out a better way. And then there's the other side of it. Like, I've worked 17 hours a week since like 2008.
Wow.
And that's a long time. And that's a lot of experience of, like, people talk about the 4-hour work week and few people ever get there, right? Like, I've been there, and I'm there, and I know how. And so, like, let me give you my experience of how to do this. So that was my motivation in writing it. And that's what I cover in the book.
Well, I really love that, because I think anyone that's trying to create some sort of online stream of income understands how important having help is. You just can't scale it yourself. You need support systems in place, but it can be really hard to execute on that. I've been trying to find a good assistant for quite some time now, and it just seems like it's really hard to make that fit. So I'm wondering, on your side, John, what are the top 3 things that I can do to make sure that I get a great virtual assistant?
Yeah. So, and I was like you, like, I tried all kinds of stuff before I figured out, like, I can hire in the Philippines and it's way more affordable. And but even when I did it, I had no idea, like, they're really talented and really good, and their English is really great. So, the top 3 things you can do to make sure you get a good assistant are, number 1, follow a recruiting process. I mean, that's, if you just go and like, I'm going to search resumes. That's the one I want to hire. You're not going to find a great one. Like, that's not how it works. So that's 1, follow a good recruiting process. Number 2, have correct expectations. Like, I get too many people that are like, I need someone that can do social media for me and can build me a custom website and can do logo design and can do, and can write my book. And like, no, that doesn't exist, right? Like, you have some good expectations. Like, you want a specific defined role here, right? And then number 3, hire a full-time person in the Philippines. That'll make such a difference over, like, I know someone in Vietnam. I got a contact in Brazil, or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do it in the Philippines.
So why, let's break that down a little bit, because I've worked with people from all over the world, everyone from America to India to Pakistan to all over the place. What makes people in the Philippines differently? Why is a virtual assistant in the Philippines just a step above the rest?
Yeah, so I've had the same experience. I've worked all over the world, and it wasn't until I hired this person in the Philippines the first time in 2005 that, like, really changed my life. So there's a big set of cultural differences in the Philippines that don't exist anywhere else in the world. It's not that, like, any one of these things doesn't exist elsewhere. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the combination of these things. So number 1, they're honest, like, to the point where my guys in the Philippines have my credit cards, and they have access to my PayPal account, and they have access to my personal email account and our servers, and they don't pay themselves because they would know how much each other made. But other than that, like, you're going to start hiring someone, and you're going to find out, oh my gosh, they're really trying really hard to be honest with me. And that's a big deal, especially when you're working virtually.
Yeah.
Number 2, they're loyal almost to a fault. Of, like, when you hire them and you treat them well, they'll never stop working for you. Like, the first guy I ever hired in 2005 still works for me today. And he's amazing today. Like, he was making $250 a month when I hired him. And today he makes a lot more than that because he's so dang good for me, right? But you have to treat them well. Number 3, they're, like, English is a primary language in the Philippines. Like, the one time I was there, I was in a hotel, I was in the lobby, and there was a Filipino guest and a Filipino hotel, the desk clerk, arguing with each other in English, right? So it's like science is taught in English in elementary school, right? Not always, but often. So communication is never an issue. Internet is super pervasive, so they can work from home, which means you don't have to go through a service to find them, which is a really big cost difference. And then they're not entrepreneurial. So like they don't want to steal your business. Like, I mean, I remember the first time I ever outsourced to India, the first question was, well, what's your business model with this?
Yeah.
Like, well, what does that matter to you? You know, like, no, we just want to make sure that, well, what he really meant was like, can we steal this or not?
Right.
And that's not the case in the Philippines. Like, they don't want to steal your business. They don't want to steal your domain. They don't want to steal your website. They want a job. They're not entrepreneurial. And so, and that's not obviously not the case with everyone, but
it sounds to me
generally,
like
entrepreneurial.
it sounds to me like those are good questions to get out of the way on the front end too, right? You know,
Yeah.
where do you see yourself in a few years, right?
Yeah, right. So like the big thing is you combine all these things together, and the Philippines is a third world country, and they don't like to call it a third world country. They like to call it a developing economy or an emerging economy, whatever. But it's hard to find a job in the Philippines. It's hard to find a full-time job in the Philippines. It's hard to find long-term work in the Philippines. They look up to foreigners, which is super different than most places in the world where they're like, oh, my idiot boss. No, in the Philippines, they're like, oh, dude, my boss is American, and they'll brag about you to their friends. And it creates a situation where like they're very pleasing by nature and they want to make you happy. And as long as you treat them well, and this is a really big, important piece, and I keep mentioning it, but as long as you treat them well, like they'll go above and beyond what you ask them to do to make sure that you're happy and that they keep their job because they really want their job.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And especially during the era of COVID-19, where employment can be really difficult to find. I think it's a powerful thing to find the right people. Like you said, the culture matters a lot, I think, and the motivation of the people you're going to be working with certainly matters a lot. I'm curious. So we're talking about your website, OnlineJobs.ph. John, what makes your website different? Do you have special screening process, or is there any sort of accountability on the back end? Like maybe a VA comes in and they end up being a scam artist or something. Do you have anything like that to make sure that you're hiring and finding the right people?
so let me take a step away. Let me go sideways for a second, actually.
Okay.
So first of all, OnlineJobs.ph is a job board. So
Okay.
like we have over 1 million Filipino profiles, like 55,000 Filipinos signed up last month.
Wow.
Right. And it almost tripled since COVID happened, like the monthly numbers, right? So we don't take a markup of people's salary. We're not an agency. We don't have an office in the Philippines. So that right there is like the biggest difference between us and anywhere else you're going to go, where like someone else has an office, they recruit the Filipinos, they bring them into the office, they mark up their salaries and lease them back to you. We're none of that, right?
Yeah.
So like that person that was making $250 a month in 2005, I was paying $750 a month. Well, with us, you pay $250 a month, right? We don't take a cut of of that salary. So that's the first big difference between someone else and us. And there aren't very many other websites that are like us. There are a few. We're like 10 times bigger. So that's another difference. So really, like our number one priority is having employers have a good experience.
Yeah.
So we do so much stuff on the back end to filter out scammers, to get rid of people from India trying to find jobs, to ban people as we get complaints about them. Like we do so much that doesn't prevent people from having bad experiences. But the likelihood of having a good experience, let's see, if someone else recruits for you, you're going to be 50-50. You do your own recruiting and you follow a good recruiting process, you're going to be like 75% good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a big difference. And that we see that over, like we have a recruiting service that will recruit for you, and I hate it because we're 50-50 with it. Right? So that's the big difference, is like you're going to recruit for yourself. You have a much higher shot at doing it if you follow a recruiting process. So you're just going to have a better experience.
Yeah. So, and I think that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I've actually literally just this weekend hired someone. And so when I went to the job posting board, I posted my job. And you can post for free, which is kind of cool too. You can post for free and get a bunch of applicants. I had 55 applicants the same day. So I had, like you said, a list of questions that I wanted to ask them, and I was able to cut them in about half with those questions and just kind of process from there. Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.